Welcome to the Reality Taboo, where no topic is off limits. It's March 19th, 2026. I'm Jeff. Joining me is my co-host Ness. First topic, César Chávez, back in the news. Reading from a Wall Street Journal article from March 18th. Title, César Chávez abuse allegations stun California labor movement. Groups with ties to César Chávez, the Hispanic labor and civil rights icon, are distancing themselves from the leader who died more than 30 years ago after allegations that he abused women and girls at the height of his prominence in the 1960s and 70s. The United Farm Workers Union, co-founded by Chávez, said Tuesday it wouldn't participate in Chávez Day celebrations this year in light of the, quote, deeply troubling allegations that Chávez, quote, engaged in inappropriate sexual behavior with women and minors. César Chávez Day is a paid holiday in California and some other states, and a non-paid commemorative federal holiday celebrated on March 31st. The details are still coming out, but at least at first glance, it appears like a pretty typical situation where a powerful person takes advantage of his position to get sex. The main accuser is a woman named Dolores Huerta. She is 96 years old, and she was a UFW co-founder and a prominent figure in the Hispanic labor movement. And so she issued a statement on Wednesday saying, I am nearly 96 years old, and for the last 60 years have kept a secret because I believed that exposing the truth would hurt the farm worker movement I have spent my entire life fighting for. Huerta claims that she had 2 sexual encounters with Chávez as a young mother in the 1960s. She said she felt pressure the first time because he was her boss and someone she admired. The second time, she said in the statement shared on social media, she was, quote, forced against my will and in an environment where I felt trapped. She said she had children after both encounters and that she hid the pregnancies.
Believe all women. So if you thought the statute of limitations had run out with Blasey Ford trying to derail Brett Kavanaugh's nomination to the Supreme Court, this Chávez accusation asks for the beer to be held. If this woman did have children with Chávez, and the article that Jeff was reading from says that she arranged for the children to be raised by other families. If she didn't lose contact with them, they should be able to find these now adult children of Chávez, and with modern genetic sequencing technology, easily be able to verify or disprove the allegations, or at least go part of the way to verifying her story, at least proving that sexual encounters with procreative consequences occurred. As to the question of whether or not it was consensual is something that is going to be lost to the mists of time. Most certainly there's not going to be any way to possibly verify the encounter 50 years on in the future. And there are many cases of women who, hypergamy is a real thing, and women tend to swoon over men who are in positions of authority. And then when those men reject commitment later on down the road, often the spurned woman's reaction is to retcon the encounter from being one that was consensual to being one that was forced upon them against their will, thereby recalibrating the power dynamic.
And the standards for what's consensual versus coerced was a lot different back in the 1960s and early 70s. Things that probably would have just maybe raised an eyebrow back then would be considered sexual assault and or rape now. And I think also in the Hispanic community, it is more common than, maybe Ness can speak to this, but I think it's more commonly accepted for older men to have sexual relations with younger girls.
Absolutely. There are contemporary cases where illegal aliens in contemporary United States are charged with sex crimes, statutory rape against minors, and they are genuinely surprised by the charges. And it's described that they don't even understand the nature of the charges because a 30-year-old man with a 14-year-old female, as long as she is post-pubescent, is not out of the ordinary in much of Central and South America.
And to be fair, it wasn't out of the ordinary in European society a few hundred years ago either.
Speaking of holding beers, if César Chávez is going to go down for one instance or a couple instances of sexual abuse 50 years ago, and school names and street names are going to be changed as a consequence, then if the same sort of treatment is ever given to Martin Luther King Jr., then MLK schools and all of the dangerous boulevards and all the major urban areas in the United States are going to have to undergo renovations in name changes as well. The sexual abuses that MLK perpetrated are not really a very well-kept secret for those who want to look. It's been reported on for decades now about MLK. From the conversation, quote, "The most damaging memos describe King witnessing a rape in a hotel room. Instead of stopping it, handwritten notes in the FBI file say he encouraged the attacker to continue. King was once thought of as a saint beyond reproach. After his death, it eventually emerged that he was a womanizer." Soon after King's death, several members of his inner circle, including Ralph Abernathy, started publicly discussing King's philandering. At the time, many justified his behavior by saying it was no different from the biblical David writing his psalms by day, only to be relieved at night by his concubines. Others pursued a line of defense extended to John F. Kennedy. What someone does in their own time isn't the public's business. Garrow had outlined several of King's marital infelicities in his 1986 biography of King, but he often spared the names of the women involved to protect their identities. Finally, in 2010, Kentucky State Senator Georgia Davis Powers recounted her intimate relationship with King in her book, I Shared the Dream. That's a pretty salacious title that the New York Post would be impressed by. Anyhow, but what has just emerged takes things to a whole new level. It now seems that King failed to stop a rape. And King is a reverend. He is a minister. César Chávez is a labor leader, was a labor leader. So in terms of the personal morality surrounding the actions of the two men, the standards are not equal to begin with.
There's a biography of Martin Luther King Jr. written by Jonathan Eig. I'm not sure how to say his last name, E-I-G. It was published in 2023. It is a very hagiographic book, but the author is clearly very admires MLK greatly, but to his credit, the author goes into great detail on all of these misconduct allegations, or more than allegations at this point. They're widely accepted and really not disputed by anyone. MLK would regularly travel around the country, and he had specific women that he would have sexual encounters with in each city, and this was a regular thing. And to MLK's credit as well, he understood what he was doing is wrong, and there's evidence that he struggled with it, and he maybe at least tried to stop, but he wasn't able to get those demons under control, and he was acting under tremendous pressure, death threats, violence. So I'm just trying to be fair, but at the same time, he was a pastor, and he invoked Christianity constantly to justify his actions. So the fact that he had, like Ness was saying, it's much less acceptable for somebody like MLK than it would be for César Chávez to engage in these kinds of sexual misconduct. If the same standard that's being used to cancel César Chávez is used against MLK, I don't see any reason why MLK wouldn't be canceled.
The sexual allegations could be a pretense to preemptively take out César Chávez for yet undisclosed, or at least publicly well-known, views that César Chávez had on illegal immigration. Chávez, as a labor leader, led domestic American laborers in protests against illegal immigrants coming from Mexico and other Latin American countries. And that, especially in the current climate, with the second Trump administration showing real signs and making real concrete efforts with real concrete results to first halt additional illegal immigration into the United States, and now, over the last several months, carrying out targeted deportations in major urban areas across the United States, most famously, most notoriously in Minneapolis. But although it has received less attention, there have been more deportations without the corresponding media circus around them in red states where local and state law enforcement have cooperated with ICE and led to expedited deportations. And so with that, in that environment, that César Chávez's worst or best kept secret, depending on your viewpoint, that he was adamantly and vigorously opposed to illegal immigration, makes him a quite inconvenient hero of the pro-immigration Hispanic community, such as it is in the United States.
Learning that César Chávez was militantly opposed to illegal immigration may sound dissonant to modern ears, but when you learn about his background and his passion for labor organizing, it actually makes perfect sense. And so César Chávez was born in 1927 near Yuma, Arizona. He deployed nonviolent tactics such as boycotts, marches, and hunger strikes to win rights for farm workers. And he first rose to prominence with the successful Delano grape strike of 1965 to 1970. And then in the early 70s, he launched a nationwide boycott of iceberg lettuce. And he was jailed for defying a court order to end the strike, which the California Supreme Court later overturned the injunction against the boycotts. And he had high-profile supporters such as Robert F. Kennedy and President Bill Clinton awarded him César Chávez the Presidential Medal of Freedom. And Chávez died in 1993 at the age of 66, and his funeral resembled a final march for his legions of followers and attracted an estimated 35,000 people. I'm reminded of the famous or infamous, depending on your perspective, Bernie Sanders interview in 2016 when he was asked about open borders, and Bernie Sanders said open borders was a Koch brothers conspiracy, because to an old school leftist like Bernie Sanders, and I didn't look it up, but I almost don't need to. I'm sure that Bernie Sanders was a major supporter of César Chávez. Of course, they would look at open borders as a big enemy of the labor rights movement, because the big corporations, in order to break strikes and to keep wages down, of course, they're going to support massive amounts of illegal immigration, cheap labor, uneducated populations that are easy to exploit. And so Chávez, in his analysis, saw that meaningful collective bargaining was nearly impossible so long as a large supply of undocumented labor remained available to growers. And speaking of Ralph Abernathy and the MLK connection, in 1969, Senator Walter Mondale and Ralph Abernathy, who Abernathy was MLK's successor at the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. So in 1969, they joined Chávez in a march against illegal immigration. And so in the early 1970s, as United Farm Workers strikes faced increasingly effective opposition from growers who recruited undocumented workers to replace strikers, Chávez escalated his response, and he launched what became known as the, quote, Illegals Campaign, which was a formal UFW initiative to identify and report undocumented workers to federal immigration authorities for deportation. And he appointed organizers to do nothing but gather information on undocumented workers in struck fields and transmit it to the Immigration and Naturalization Service. And so Chávez and his organization would report these illegal aliens to INS, which was the predecessor to ICE. And when authorities failed to act on that information, Chávez grew frustrated, and he actually made a claim that the CIA was conspiring to flood California with undocumented migrants, specifically to undermine the Union. And Chávez organized what I think he himself called, quote, wet lines along the Arizona-Mexico border, patrols led by his cousin, Manuel Chávez, in which UFW members physically intercepted illegal aliens attempting to cross into the United States. And Chávez encouraged Union members to join these patrols. basically an unofficial supplement to the Border Patrol.
These sound like tactics being pushed by César Chávez that the late Rene Good and Alex Peretti wouldn't even accuse ICE of doing contemporaneously today in their most fevered dreams. And of course, the logic is unassailable. It's basic supply and demand. If there is a larger pool of labor, then the labor cannot demand as high of wages from capital, to put it in stark Marxian terms. And the legal protections that U.S. citizens enjoy do not need to be extended to people who are illegally present in the country, because the threat of being turned in by their employers and deportation no longer being supported or covered for always hangs over their heads. It's no accident that the same arguments that can be made in favor of slavery can be made in favor of maintaining illegal immigration to be used by employers. There is a larger labor pool. The conditions that they are able to demand are much lower, and if the labor is disagreeable in any way, it can easily be replaced by an effectively infinite supply of labor from all over the globe.
And César Chávez utilized the tool of strikes on a pretty regular basis, and the effectiveness of a strike is dramatically undercut if the employer can just replace the striking with a bunch of illegal scabs.
Yes, effectively, if the American working class labor force is a union by way of its citizenship, and shared commitment to the regulations and expectations of the American labor market, then effectively illegal immigrants are scabs from all over the rest of the world. And so I think there is the answer we have for why now, why this is being brought up now. Though I think it is also important to understand that Globo Homo, the managerial state, needs to always be able to dispatch people for effectively any reason at any time. It is a useful tool in the tool belt for retconning, to be able to have some pretense to get rid of someone. And so if the believe all women narrative is still active or is being fired back up for the removal of César Chávez, then pushing back against it and showing that you can stop the cancellation is a danger in its own right. And so once that ball starts rolling, I don't suspect that the powers that be will do much to stop it. Because if we can save César Chávez for his sins, then we can also save Thomas Jefferson, George Washington, maybe even Robert E. Lee if people get too uppity in what they think they can do. So when the year zero cultural revolution comes for a figure, it is imperative for the Globo Homo managerial states to ensure that the desecration and destruction of the reputation goes on unhindered. Apropos of nothing but a little bit of comic relief, Jeff is going to be forced here into relaying a story about Jasmine Crockett, the unsuccessful Democratic nominee for the Senate in Texas, and a story surrounding her that is, to put it pithily, an example of blacks being black.
So on a previous episode, we used three figures to discuss the possible future of the Democratic Party, specifically who the presidential nominee is going to be in 2028. And we picked Gavin Newsom, AOC, and Jasmine Crockett. And you can listen to that episode to hear our thoughts on what those three branches represent. But so what I found most amusing about Jasmine Crockett is her taking code switching to a level I have never seen before. So code switching is common among African Americans, where they will, depending on their audience and whether they're around fellow blacks or among whites, they will talk in ghetto, heavily Ebonics accent or more white sounding accents. And Jasmine Crockett took that to another level. And so she, I think, there's some speculation that she was essentially tricked by the Republicans into running for the Senate because the Republicans were hoping that she would win because they felt that she would be a very easy opponent to defeat in the Senate race, because on the Republican side, there's a possibility that Ken Paxton, the Attorney General of Texas, is going to win the Republican nomination, and he has a lot of baggage and some very shady background, which would make him potentially make it difficult for him to win. So if he were to face Jasmine Crockett, it might be easier for him to win versus his actual opponent. Whoever wins the GOP nomination, their opponent is going to be James Tallarico, who actually might have a chance of winning the Texas Senate seat. So I meant to have us cover this story on previous episodes. We just didn't get around to it, but it was a pretty interesting, closely watched Democratic primary in Texas for the Senate seat. The main contenders were James Tallarico, who ultimately won, and Jasmine Crockett. And there was an interesting little flare-up controversy, if you want to call it that, in the race. So there was some simmering racial issues there, being Tallarico's Hispanic, but he looks very white. And there was this quote that supposedly Tallarico said that he had signed up to run against, quote, a mediocre black man, not a formidable, intelligent black woman, referring to former Congressman Colin Allred and Crockett, respectively. So there was a third candidate who nobody really ever thought had a chance, and he didn't come anywhere close to winning. But he was a black man named Colin Allred. Well, he's actually biracial, and he was actually an NFL linebacker and civil rights attorney. And so apparently Tallarico was much more eager to face up against Allred than against Crockett, therefore leading to his statement that he had signed up to run against a mediocre black man, not a formidable, intelligent black woman. And so Allred ended up endorsing Crockett and said in a video response that if Tallarico could speak that way about him, Tallarico lacked, quote, the requisite respect, understanding, empathy to represent, but also to receive the support of black voters in Texas. And Tallarico didn't deny the conversation, but called it a mischaracterization, insisting he had been describing Allred's method of campaigning as mediocre, but his life and service are not. And then Crockett called Tallarico's remark, quote, straight up racist, and accused a pro-Tallarico super PAC ad of deliberately darkening her skin. And so even the most inoffensive, goofy, white Democrat is not at all immune from accusations of racism. So Jasmine Crockett lost that race a few weeks ago. She hasn't been having a great month. And then she got some more bad news, as Ness alluded to. On March 11th, Dallas SWAT officers tracked a fugitive to the parking garage of Children's Medical Center in Dallas. And after an hours-long standoff, the man stepped out of his vehicle, drew a handgun, and was shot and killed by officers. No police were injured, and within days, law enforcement sources confirmed that the dead man had been a member of Congresswoman Crockett's personal security detail. The man the world knew as Mike King was in fact Diamond Mazare Robinson, 39, who had been living under a false identity for years. He operated a private security company called Off-Duty Police Services, which placed real off-duty Dallas law enforcement officers in security jobs. So he created fraudulent ID cards for a non-existent agency he called Special Dignitary Police, drove replica law enforcement vehicles with license plates stolen from outside a military recruiting office, and carried 2 active felony theft warrants dating to 2017, along with a parole violation, according to the Dallas Police Department. So Crockett confirmed that Robinson had worked on her security detail for years, including during her Senate campaign, and that her team had followed all protocols outlined by the House to contract additional security through a Capitol Police-approved vendor. And in a statement, she described him as someone who, quote, never endangered our team, worked diligently, coordinated with local law enforcement, and maintained positive relationships throughout the community, adding that, quote, what we're now learning about his past doesn't fit the person we came to know as Mike King. It's been a rough few months for Jasmine Crockett, and her chance of becoming the Democratic presidential nominee in 2028 have gone down even further?
It's probably prudent to be bearish on Jasmine Crockett in particular, but I wouldn't read too much into this in terms of settling where the most influence and power among the three slices of the Democratic electorate are. Texas is not a particularly black state. There are other states where Jasmine Crockett's identity first appeal in general and to her blackness in particular would have been a lot more successful if she had been operating in South Carolina or Mississippi or Alabama. The relatively close primary race would have almost certainly swung in her favor. Additionally, her campaign strategy, her ads were really risibly unbelievable. The idea that having 30 seconds or 60 seconds of Donald Trump being the entertaining jester figure that he is, that made him so successful on reality TV, to just have a minute of him insulting her over and over and over again in an unbroken string of humiliating name calling, to run that as a campaign ad and think that it's going to be effective really boggles the mind. If the ad in question is not one that has crossed your radar yet, allow a bit of setup before it is introduced to you. We have, as the audio of Donald Trump plays, we have first a side view of Jasmine Crockett, and then about midway through, she turns and looks at the camera. So she turns from the profile shots to looking directly at the camera with a stone-faced facial expression that will instantly bring to mind the woman sitting at the DMV who's irritated that you're standing in line and that she has to help you. And that is the entirety of the ad.
How about this new one they have? Their new star, Crockett. How about her? She's the new star of the Democrat Party, Jasmine Crockett. They're in big trouble. But you have this woman, Crockett. She's a very low IQ person. I watched her speak the other day. She's definitely a low IQ person. Crockett. Oh, man. Oh, man. She's a very low IQ person. Somebody said the other day, she's one of the leaders of the party. I said, you got to be kidding. Now they're going to rely on Crockett. Crockett's going to bring them back.
Shifting gears to follow up on what was discussed last week about perceived discrimination by various groups in America, and who the groups that are perceived to be the targets of that discrimination. One point I meant to bring up that I failed to do, so I will do so now, is that there really does seem to be a skin color matters reality when it comes to the racial hierarchy, the racial victimization hierarchy in the West. What I have in mind in particular is that subcontinental Indians, although they are darker than whites, than people of European descent, physiognomically, they look a lot more like white people than East Asians do, even though East Asian skin pigment is much closer to that of Europeans. And I think in the hierarchy, South Asians come in higher than East Asians. East Asians basically sit at one step above the bottom. Just whites are below them, but East Asians are just one step up, and they are below subcontinentals. I have in mind Andrew Yang on the one hand as someone who, although rhetorically he captured a lot of attention in 2020, has effectively fallen off the map. His political prospects have gone nowhere, while Zohran Mamdani has flourished in the Democratic Party. And Zohran Mamdani, if not for his darker skin, looks a lot more like a white person than Andrew Yang does. And while East Asians are successful in the United States, so are subcontinentals, so are South Asians. And so I don't think this is just a consequence of the fact that East Asians do better socioeconomically than South Asians. I don't think that accounts for the fact that South Asians rank higher on the victim hierarchy than East Asians do. It could also be the fact that South Asians are more loquacious and have better verbal acuity, and East Asians tend to be stronger when it comes to visuospatial skills and are more laconic.
So what specific facial features are you talking about? Because the only ones I can think of right off the bat are the epicantral folds on East Asians.
Yeah, the epicanthic eye folds are one aspect, a broader facial structure, the higher cheekbones, the lower body hair density of East Asians compared to Europeans and South Asians. As we record, the Senate is hashing it out over the SAFE Act, which is a piece of legislation that passed the House that would require voter identification for eligibility in federal elections. And this thing is not going to pass. Polymarket currently has it at a 10% chance of passing the Senate. And that is despite the fact that this is about the most popular piece of legislation imaginable. Economist YouGov ran a survey this week on it, and there is just 29% opposition among American adults to the SAFE Act, to requiring documented proof of citizenship for people to register or re-register to vote. Among blacks, it's 46% supporting, just 33% in opposition. So a demographic group that Republicans lose 9-1 is by a 3-2 margin in favor of the SAFE Act. And so that means, to put it in more easily comprehensible terms, that effectively means that blacks are about 15 times more supportive of the SAFE Act than they are of Republicans in general. And of course, it is a Republican-controlled Senate, a Republican-controlled House, and a Republican executive. And despite that, among independents, we look at independents and we see 52% support to 31% opposition, so close to 2-1 in favor of the SAFE Act among independents, a group that right now has a 2-1 disapproval ratio against Trump. And so this is a wildly popular thing requiring people voting to show evidence that they are who they say they are. It is one of the few issues that Republicans are associated with, that the right champions, that is popular not just among Republicans, but also among independents and even a significant number of Democrats. Even among Democrats, just 53% oppose. And despite all of this, and at a time when the Trump administration and Republicans more generally could use a political win ahead of a midterm election this fall that is shaping up to be an electoral bloodbath. Despite all of that, the Republican-controlled Senate still can't get this thing across the line. And I think the takeaway message is that the idea that we're voting our way out of this is laughable on its face. Literally, they can't even vote for a mostly symbolic piece of legislation to allow the vote to happen fairly, and we are relying on an electoral process to reverse the demographic transformation that is undergoing the United States. It's a black pill, but I think it's a hard black pill to deny. Finally, it's not uncommon to hear Christians, or churchians more accurately, talk about how genealogy and a concern with ancestry is an obsession of bigoted sinners and not something at all that is inherently Christian, that Christianity is inherently and almost exclusively concerned with the individual, the beliefs and actions of the individual, and that who your ancestors are and who your descendants are, the family that you're a part of, the tribe, the racial group that you're a part of, doesn't really matter. That is, on its face, impossible to square against the Old Testament. Numbers and Deuteronomy and Exodus are full. Genesis is full of X begot Y, begot Z, begot A, begot B, begot C. There are literally page after page just tracing the genealogy of the first Christians. But the insinuation is then that Jesus came to fulfill the old law and that there is a new covenant, and so that those old concerns with genealogy are old hat and they don't matter anymore. So we will leave today with a scriptural refutation of that assertion from not just the New Testament, but from the Gospel of Luke in particular, Luke 3:23 to 38. Now Jesus himself was about 30 years old when he began his ministry. He was the son, so it was thought, of Joseph, the son of Heli, the son of Mathat, the son of Levi, the son of Melchi, the son of Janai, the son of Joseph, the son of Matthias, the son of Amos, the son of Nahum, the son of Esli, the son of Nagai, the son of Math, the son of Matthias, the son of Simeon, the son of Josech, the son of Joda, the son of Joanan, the son of Ressa, the son of Zerubbabel, the son of Shealtiel, the son of Neri, the son of Melchi, the son of Addi, the son of Kosam, the son of Elmanaim, the son of the son of Joshua, the son of Eleazar, the son of Joram, the son of Mathat, the son of Levi, the son of Simeon, the son of Judah, the son of Joseph, the son of Jonam, the son of Eliakim, the son of Melei, the son of Menai, the son of Mathati, the son of Nathan, the son of David, the son of Jesse, the son of Obed, the son of Boaz, the son of Salmon, the son of Nahshon, the son of Amminadab, the son of Ram, the son of Hezron, the son of Perez, the son of Judah, the son of Jacob, the son of Isaac, the son of Abraham, the son of Terah, the son of Nahor, the son of Serag, the son of Ro, the son of Peleg, the son of Eber, the son of Shelah, the son of Canaan, the son of Arphaxad, the son of Shem, the son of Noah, the son of Lamech, the son of Methuselah, the son of Enoch, the son of Jared, the son of Mahalalel, the son of Kenan, the son of Enosh, the son of Seth, the son of Adam, the son of God. But who your worldly fathers were doesn't matter at all. That'll do it for us this week. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you next time.